Well, in my experience, this is, I think, my fourth or fifth reorg, the first time as the CEO and the president. What I have found is that a successful reorganization is the result of the people, right? It's all about the people.
Welcome to the Measure Success podcast, where we feature top leaders on how they measure success in their business and life. Now, let's learn from their experiences.
And two-time guest now, Don Lindsey. We had him back in September of 2022 on our 84th episode. Here we are, and this is going to be released as our 194th episode. Pretty crazy. Here we go. Don Lindsey is the CEO of Precision Machine and Manufacturing based in Eugene, Oregon. And I've been able to see firsthand how he has been able to turn around that company from a company that frankly hadn't grown in multiple years to a company that has over doubled in size since he's been able to be there. And today he's going to talk about the secret sauce, which has truly been his secret sauce to help get towards that growth. I'm going to say a couple more things, Don, just for fun here, for reference for those who don't know you. If you don't have to be watching on YouTube right now, Don, if he stood up, is over 6 feet tall. Looks like he's more likely to be an NFL offensive lineman than it is to be a CEO. And then secondly, he also looks like he might be in a motorcycle gang, as he is a tough looking dude. And but what you don't know is he's a family man first. He coaches a lacrosse team at the local high school, and he has truly been one of the best servant-based leaders I've ever seen in an organization. Hey, Don, welcome to the Measure Success podcast.
Well, thanks, Carl. It's great being here, back for an encore, right? Here we are, almost 2 years later, and just excited to just dig in and just talk about the success we've had here at Precision Machine and Manufacturing.
It's absolutely been tremendous. I mean, frankly, every metric, right? I mean, talk about every metric has improved, from who our humans are that are there to sales to our profitability that's above industry levels right now, which is extraordinary. You continue to grow. You have a strong backlog. You have on-time delivery. I mean, I think we're at 100%, I think recently.
100%. It's been 100% 5 months in a row. Yep.
So we have so many we digged into, but today's primary topic that we're going to focus on is people. Because you have had even though it's the same exact building, there's very few people who were able to get through and survive to be a part of the new Precision team. So let's start talking about that. When you got there today, let's go back to kind of that when you first started to where you are today. What have you learned and what have you seen? And why did you have to make the changes that you did to help make sure you could create the leadership and culture you wanted in this organization?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, first of all, it all started out when I first spoke with our ownership group and really got an understanding for the company, the challenges the company had been going through. And then I really pinned them down on how much time that I would have to turn the organization around. And they committed to 3 years, and which for me is the magic number. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you're reorganizing or changing. It's a 3-year process. The first year is the most painful. It's extremely challenging. There are a lot of changes. And if you're fortunate enough to keep your revenue and your profit going while you're making those changes, that's a bonus, but oftentimes it doesn't go that way. The second year is what I would call a false peak year. You're starting to have some marginal benefit from the changes you made in the previous year, but you haven't completed the build out of the foundation. So it's not sustainable. And then the third year is when all those changes from year 1 and year 2 come together and you start punching it home. And you really start having this success. And certainly that's how it played out here. I visited Precision early on before I signed up. And one thing I recognize is that there were some great people here, great core product. It's a company that's been around since the late 70s. I like businesses like this, industrial manufacturing. I really like businesses that that were established by what I would call a baby boomer, somebody from that generation, right? They were born in the 40s or 50s. They started a business. They generally have a great product, great core group of people. But over the last 20 years, their go-to-market strategy has kind of struggled. And when I can come into an organization like that and really focus more on the sales and marketing side, then onto the operation, then there starts to be some real nice gains that could be had. And so when I came here, in my experience, this is, I think, my fourth or fifth reorg, the first time as the CEO and the president. What I have found is that a successful reorganization is the result of the people, right? It's all about the people. Buildings and businesses and equipment without the people are just that. They're vacant. It's vacant equipment. It's vacant buildings. They're vacant spaces that are just sitting. And I sat and talked with a CEO one time, or a group of CEOs one time. And I said, business is about the people first and foremost. And they kind of looked at me confusingly. And I said, if you don't believe me, go down to your shipping dock on Sunday afternoon and tell me how much stuff you're shipping. And it was zero, right? Because they're closed on Sundays. I said, if you fill your business full of quality people and then give them the quality tools that they need to be successful, that's when the magic will happen, right? And so, first and foremost, I came in and did a full evaluation top to bottom of the people. The culture here was horrible. It was a fear-based culture, really bad attitudes, more really just kind of collection of tribal knowledge, no real sharing of intel and information, just a really not a great culture. And so that was the first thing that I recognized we needed to change. And so, I did what I always do. I get the entire company together and kind of established who I am, right? And as you mentioned, I'm a big dude and I have a big presence. And I'm just real clear. I'm saying, first and foremost, you got to be hardworking, right? And that doesn't mean that, you just show up, punch the clock and leave. That means you're doing the little things. That means, I don't have to ask you to do something that you see needs to be done. That means you're the first person in line, when extra effort or extra duties are needed, or things are needed to get done. You got to be hardworking every day. Number two, I said, I need great attitudes. And this kind of caught him by surprise. I said, I will not put up with period. And they kind of looked at me, right? And I said, I need great attitudes. And that doesn't mean that we don't have bad days. We all have bad days, right? But that means that you're a great teammate. You're consistently have a positive attitude. It's a can-do attitude, and you're working hard. And I said, if you're going to bitch every day, you're not going to work here. That's just, I don't care how good you are, you won't work here. And I said, number three, you got to be accountable. I said, accountability is key. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. Own it. Let's learn from it and let's grow. And number four, you got to be coachable, right? And because I started coaching kids in 1990, and I've coached for most of my life, and that's how I leaned to personnel and personal development, is coaching and challenging and helping people kind of take that next step. And so I established who I was, and I established the baseline, and that baseline will not waver. And that's a hard thing to do, right, for most people, because, hey, this guy's got great tribal knowledge, or this gal, she's been here for a really long time. And so people want to, especially initially, be extremely flexible, and you can't. You have to establish your expectation. And then on the other side, you have to tell them what they can expect of you, right? When I was in the military, the one thing I hated were sergeants that were the do as I say and not as I do guy, right? They'd be, hey, you do it because I'm telling you to, not because I don't do that. I do it this way. And I never wanted to be that guy. If I'm telling people they got to be hardworking, they have a great attitude, be accountable and coachable, then I gotta represent that first and foremost. And so I just very clearly told them what they can expect of me every day. Told them that it's not going to be easy, but it's like my daddy said when I was a kid, anything worth having is worth working for. and we're gonna do it. And so, we just went to work, and true to form, so a number of people decided to test me on the no rule, and they didn't last very long. And that was kind of a wake up call for a lot of folks that, hey, things are changing here. I made it very clear to them that, hey, I don't want to hear this, what was this? The common statement was, well, we used to do it this way, or we used to have success this way, or this is the way we've always done it. I said, I'm here to tell you, if we were successful, I wouldn't be here. So this company hadn't been successful for well over a decade. And that's why I'm here. So what you think was a good practice, or what was profitable, or what was successful, it really wasn't. And that was something that I really had to reinforce over a period of time. And so, Carl, you and I talked early on, and you said, Don, how will you measure success at Precision? I mean, I think it was here 3 months, and it was myself and the CFO at the time. And I looked at the CFO and the CFOs, and I said, go ahead. And he said, well, we're going to have so much revenue and so much EBITDA, and, our backlog's going to be X, and our net profit's going to be this. And that's what I would expect from a CFO. And then you looked at me, you said, Don, what do you think? And I said, we'll be successful when we're the company that does what we do in the local area, and everybody wants to work here, right? When we're that company that people hear about what's going on over here at Precision, and they walk to the front door because they want to be a part of it, that's when I'll know we're being successful. Because when we're that company, all the rest of it will take care of itself. And so we went to work on really trying to grow the business, trying to develop good, sound technical processes and operationally, and getting the level of knowledge and experience to another level. And many people we hired walked through the front door because they heard about the changes that we're making here, and they wanted to be a part of it. Too often, I've found in leadership, people are afraid of hiring really strong caliber people because they have this misconception that they always need to be the smartest person in the room, or they're so fearful of their position that anybody smarter or more experienced than they are, they're fearful that they're going to be replaced or something like that. And that is just so unfortunate, because what they're actually doing is sabotaging their organization. They're not bringing in the very best talent to help the organization be successful, many of which are better and smarter than that leader is. And as a result, the organization never fully achieves the level of success. I was real clear. I'm like, listen, this is Don Lindsey. I am not the smartest cat in the world, right? There's a lot of people a lot smarter than me. The good Lord's blessed me with two things. One is my ability to work with people. My leadership skills are in conjunction with that. And then two, what I just call unbelievable common sense. So those are the things I'm going to bring to the table, and a strong work ethic. And those are things I'm going to bring to the table. And I'm going to surround myself with people that know the stuff that I don't know. And we went to work doing that. And leaders cannot be afraid of saying, I don't know. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, when you hire really good people and you give them the tools that they need to be successful, and you give them the responsibility and the authority to do their job to the highest level, you'll truly be amazed at the team that you can build, right? And so early on, because I'm a control guy, my hands were in everything, my hands in every aspect of the company. As I started to get top-notch leadership in place, top-notch, independent thinkers in place, I could begin to defer. Did they make mistakes? Sure they did. But that's how you learn, right? They have to make mistakes in order to learn, in order to get better. And we have to, as leaders, we have to be willing to let them make those mistakes. We hope they're not too terribly expensive, but it's a learning process. And the more that you encourage and that you help and that you promote, the more buy-in you get and the more support you get as a leader. So it's been a great journey. It's been, the team that we've built here has been top notch, and Precision is successful because of the people. And we've doubled revenue from 6 million to 12 million annually. And we generated our first 6-digit EBITDA for the first time in a decade. And we're knocking on 2 million in EBITDA this year. So a company that in the previous 10 years prior to 2021, or really 8 years, really hadn't done more than 5, 8, 900,000 in EBITDA, and in some cases lost money, is now on its way to really being a successful, sustaining business, which has been great.
So interesting, Don, of just you talk about the story and how you have stayed true to these principles. I remember one of the conversations we had early on, because I think there was pressure and concern, right? When you have a private equity firm, given a little bit of background, once again, for those who maybe I didn't fully make it clear, I came on to Precision before Don did. And just to clarify, talented group of human beings, frankly, nice set of people. They wanted to do well, right? And but the problem was the numbers weren't playing out. And when you're involved in private equity, and like the term is saying, it was long in the tooth, meaning they were expected to sell you already, and you're not ready to sell because you have not created the value yet. It's a pressure filled situation. And so when I came in, it's a little bit of concern for any CEO if I'm being brought in on the private equity turnaround, because they know there's risk. But you were part of one of our first hires, when we went through that process. And I remember saying, hey, stay consistent with who you are, because it's what it's made you successful. That's what we've hired for. Now, one of the things I wanted to ask a question with, because, there's a couple interesting things that happened. Number one was you first started on the sales and marketing side. You weren't their CEO originally, right? Mm-hmm. And but you earned that spot because you were able to show the value. And just to clarify, I think you doubled the sales orders in basically 12 months. Isn't that
That's right.
About right?
That's correct.
But the problem was, what you alluded to is, you fixed the sales and marketing side, but the operations wasn't ready for doubling its size. And so we had our share of hiccups. And now, once again, I was in the consulting days during that first 18, 24 months, but now I've been on the board of directors, being able to see things firsthand. And you had to make changes to, once again, talented people. And so there was times I remember, Don, where there was very talented people that people thought, you cannot get rid of that guy or gal, right? They have too much talent. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm talking about here. I mean, you could probably, in your head, you can envision some of these people like there's no way we can get rid of them. So I want to share with you perhaps that entrepreneur, that CEO that's listening right now, and they have somebody who's, we'll just say what it is, a cancer on their team, right? They're either, as you said, they're either about things, bad attitude, not showing up on time, going behind people's back on a consistent basis. They're doing the things that you don't expect from the type of people that you want to have in an organization. At least most organizations I know, they don't really want to have people like that.
That's right.
What advice, if somebody's in a new situation right now and they have what, quote unquote, the indispensable people that people feel like you can't get rid of, but they are effectively a cancer in the organization, what advice and what did you do to get over that hurdle?
Yeah. Well, the first piece of advice I would tell them is you will survive, right? The business is bigger than any one person. I don't care what they've led you to believe or what anybody has led you to believe. You will survive. Will you take a little bit of a step back, maybe? Potentially. But what you'll find when you eliminate that cancer is that people that are there, you'll have people that will step up in a way that you never saw to pick up the slack, to fill the gap. I mentioned the 8 people that are here today. What I found was those 8 people, really great people, but they were not being fully utilized to their full potential, right? They were being suppressed in one way, shape, or form. And so the more I got to work with them, the more I got to know them, I was like, wow, these folks are part of our solution, not the problem, but they needed to be tapped into at a higher level to be able to take advantage of their knowledge and expertise and experience. My director of manufacturing operations, he's been here for almost 25 years. He was not being utilized to his fullest potential. And, and through a process, we continued to elevate him in a way that gave him more responsibility, more authority. And now he is a very important part of our executive leadership team. And so usually what happens in situations where people have cancer is it's fear, right? You cannot run an organization from a fear-based mindset. You can't do it. And that was my predecessor, unfortunately. You have to lean into everything. You cannot be fearful. Are there risks? Sure, there are risks. Are there unknowns? Every day, right? But you make the best decision based on what you know today, and you move forward. But here's the key. As you move forward, the future, the unknown, will become the present, the known, and you'll gain new information. So then you adjust, right? Based on that. Too often leaders go, oh, we're going to move forward and do this. And then as new information comes in, they don't change. They just keep doing the exact same thing. And then what started out as a great idea becomes a really bad idea, right? So, my advice to those people is you will survive. There's talent among your team and within your midst that you don't realize is there that will reveal itself once that cancer is removed. The last piece I will say is this: cancer has got to go. No organization is one person. No person is one organization. Cancer permeates through a team and an organization like paint in water. If you've ever seen paint in a creek, when I was a kid, we always getting into trouble. We dumped 5 gallons of paint in this pond near my house, and it just
We won't let the EPA know about that, Doug.
We won't, yeah. So the white overtook the pond, right? And I'm like, oh man, is it going to go away before my dad sees? Fortunately, it did. That's what happens. That's what cancer does. Is it just overtakes, the people and the team, and it suppresses those that truly care about the organization, that don't contribute at a higher level because they figure, hey, if leadership isn't doing anything about the cancer, then they must not care. So they don't put forth the effort. And that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, Don, I think we have the title of our podcast, which is How to Get Rid of the Cancer in Your Organization, right? Once again, we don't want to do any names or different things of that nature, but there were some people that you thought were the right person. And this is sometimes what's harder, right? You bringing them in, you've gone through your process. You think they're going to be perfect, and then they don't. Okay, how do you overcome that one, right? Here you're in this turnaround process, right? And you're like, man, I've got my guy or gal, I got my dude here, right? And they're just going to crush it for me. And you find out they're not. What do you do then? How do you overcome that obstacle? Because it's one thing when you have the cancer, but then it's like, ooh, I brought in a stumbling block, or perhaps I even brought in another cancer unknowingly. What do you do then?
Yeah, that actually for me was harder than getting rid of the cancer, right? Because I made the decision to bring this person into our organization. And for me, when I make a decision to bring somebody in and I give them the responsibility, then I also give them the authority. If they're going to be successful, it's not because I'm coming over the top of them, changing their decisions or changing what they want to do. I'm going to give them the tools and the authority to do what they need to do. And so I monitor, right, to see if my expectations are being met, and really I watch the team. How's the team responding, right? And as a leader, feedback from the team. Now, granted, you can't make everybody happy, and you're not going to be, but there are certain things that you want to start cluing into. If you hear the same people saying the same, or different people saying the same things, right? Then there's like, there's a commonality there. And then what will begin to happen, because everybody, initially, they call it the honeymoon stage, right? They give their best effort and all is well. And, everybody is seemingly playing fair. playing fairly in the sandbox. But then after that honeymoon period wears off, then you start to see the true colors, right? And then you start seeing what isn't being done, or you start to hear people say, gosh, Don, when you were running it, we got to do this, or we were doing this, but now you're stepped away and that person's running it. And now we're missing these marks. And so then I have to really dig in, right? I got to dig into why. And that generally starts with some very telling and truthful conversations. One thing about me is I'm very direct and I'm very clear in my communications. And if somebody's not doing the job, I just tell them you're not doing the job. But then the question is, you're not doing the job because either A, you don't have the experience and knowledge, or B, you have something else holding you back. Which is it? And if they don't have the experience or knowledge, can we get them the experience and knowledge so that very quickly so they can perform? Or is there something else, going on that I need to address as well? And so you kind of got to weigh that out. And sometimes, usually for me, I want to try to do everything I can to help that person be successful. Because no matter who it is, whether it's somebody sweeping the floor, it's an executive, when they walk out the front door, I want them to be able to say that Don Lindsey did everything that he could do to help that person be successful. And, and so through that process, if things just are not improving at the rate that I'm expecting, then it comes down to just, you're not the guy or the gal, and we're going to have to make a change. And that happened. And that was it was an important position. I probably struggled with that decision more so than any other decision, because, there was a lot associated with it. And I knew making that change was going to kind of revert things back. But what I found when I made that change, again, is others rallied to the occasion. Some folks showed that they were ready for the responsibility, and we took a huge step forward, and it wound up being a real positive thing. I just did it, and then you start wondering as a leader, well, shoot, I should have did that 3 months ago. Well, yes and no, right? Yeah, sometimes it's good to make a quick decision and move on. Other times, you want to make sure that you're doing right by the person, and you want to make sure you're doing right by the company always. And if you feel that you are, then it's time to make the change and move on down the road.
No, well said. And I think that is, once again, that's the hardest changes of, we're never going to be 100% with our decisions when we make hires. And I think even Google has shown, after spending the gazillions that they spend on hiring, they still make 50% error. And the real challenge is you have to overcome and go, okay, something happened wrong, whether we didn't have the right person in the right place, or we just literally just made a mistake. But getting to the point to getting there. And I remember having conversations, and, it took a couple of times, but once it got there, and think about it, how much better. One of the biggest things that was holding us back from being successful was we were unable to get on time delivery. And you and I remember that conversation because we were together in the same room, and it was like, oh, we're missing something. It was just like this, it was like this, big beam of light, and it was like, okay, we can't overcome this light. But then you found the right person, different role. In this case, it was a scheduler. Solved all the world's. I mean, it's unfair to say solved all the world's problems, but kind of solved all the world's problems. Today we have incredible on-time delivery. You have overtime. Less than
2% this last month, and it when I started, we couldn't get it below 12%.
Yeah. So that's what's amazing about this. And not only, I believe you actually have less people now from when we first started, less total people, double in sales, better profitability, and only less than 2% overtime. So it is, once again, a remarkable improvement. It's just been a combination of all things. Don, we have that unfortunate problem. We gotta wrap up today. So just two quick questions here. You mentioned a little bit, and you said it. I loved how you said, how we measure success is people are coming in the door. And actually, I'm just going to answer it for you. That has happened.
Yeah.
you've become the place where people want to go to. They were saying, how do we measure success? You've been able to get that where people are wanting to come to your organization. You have people that are waiting and hoping, if you may, in line to come in to be a part of Precision. And that is absolutely fantastic. I'm curious, just one quick little fun question. I know you're a big reader, any recent books for you has like kind of been impactful? Yeah, we want to share.
Yeah, right here. The Way of the Champion by Paul Rabel. Just picked that up. If you know what Paul Rabel is, he started the PLL, which is the Professional Lacrosse League. He played at Johns Hopkins, won a national championship, played on Team USA. Phenomenal guy. Him and his brother started the PLL. And Paul, the cool thing about this book is it's not a cover to cover story, but it's like about, 30 mini stories within it. And so he'll talk about, like, the title is Own the Morning, right? And he'll spend a page and a half about get up in the morning and doing the little things, right? And that sets your day up for success. And then he'll talk about, there are no losses, there are only lessons, right? And he spends a couple pages talking about that. And that's just his experience as an athlete, which I really relate with. And then, how he's taken that and applied it to the PLL, because if you look at the growth of the PLL, I mean, he's taken the best parts of every league, whether it's the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, the MLB, and he's taken a little piece and he's put this together into the PLL, and it's the fastest growing professional league in sports right now. And so Paul Rabel is my hero, and I would definitely recommend the book. It just came out.
Awesome. Great recommendation. Don, how can people connect and learn and see more about what you're doing?
Yeah, just check me out on LinkedIn, Precision Machine and Manufacturing. We have our page, and then Don Lindsey on LinkedIn. Look me up, and love to connect with you.
Don, thank you so much for being a 2-time guest. It's so awesome to hear all the success that you've had over the past couple of years since our last podcast.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me back, Carl. Always hold you in the highest regard as my friend, mentor, guide, and a board member, consultant, all the above. I don't know that I have a single person in my life that ticks all the boxes that you tick. So thank you for that.
Don, thank you so much for the kind words. And to everyone who's listening, I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Please subscribe, like it. That's how we continue to get great people, great guests, great ratings, is because of people like Don who continue to show how to measure success. And as we always like to say, wishing the very best at measuring your success. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Measure Success podcast. We'll see you again next time to learn from the best. Remember to subscribe now to get future episodes.